I came across this meme. I'm going to call it a meme or quote on Twitter the other day. It's not a matter of supporting the right or supporting the left. It is a matter of control versus being left alone. And the way I see it is there are government systems, there are government parties that are more about control, and others that are less about control, but nonetheless, there's still control. Today, we're going to be talking about politics. We're going to be talking about how I see politics, why I believe in what I believe in. And for those of you who know, I've already came out and said I'm conservative, but at the end of the day, there are some people that are probably going to say that I'm moderate. So the way I see it is the left and right are both about control, unfortunately. One is more about control than the other, though. And I just want to come out and say that everything that I say is up for debate. It is debatable. And by all means, throw as many facts at me as you want. I'd be more than happy to read what whoever brings to me information. This is your opportunity, the audience, to humble me or educate me or inform me. But I'll be talking about how I see things and why. So I'm going to start off and talk about why I believe. I'm going to talk about my beliefs, actually. I'm going to be talking about my beliefs. So first and foremost, the most controversial one is I am very pro-gun. I am very pro-gun because at the end of the day, bad people are going to have guns. And bad people are going to use those guns to rain terror, havoc, steal. And the only thing that can really stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I believe in defending yourself. And from the last video, there was an example where I did have to use a firearm to defend myself. Luckily, I didn't have to fire it. No one wants to really fire their gun at someone unless you're an insane lunatic. But those insane lunatics are the people that we need to arm ourselves against. Shooting guns as a hobby is fun. I do enjoy going to the shooting range and shooting some of my firearms. I own a Colt M4, which for those of you who have been in the military is what we had, or FN, an FN-15. But it's good to own something that I had during my time in Afghanistan, and legally owning it is very nice. I do collect firearms. I have an old Chinese SKS, and just having a piece of history in your hand is just really awesome. I would like muskets at some point. It might not be authentic from the Revolutionary War, but just owning something that is a replica can still fire, metal balls. I don't know. It's interesting. It's also a genuine hobby that makes me happy. It's also an expensive hobby. Half of that's because of the ATF. But that's why I like guns, is self-defense and the ability to protect yourself and owning pieces of history, just collecting firearms in general. And shooting is fun. The other thing is I believe in low taxes. I believe in low taxes because I believe that when you go to work and you work an honest day, you work to earn your money. And there are people out there that are all for high taxes. And it's like you do realize that when you work and you're taxed on your work, you're taxed on your income, you're working for free. That is money that is not being put towards bills. That is money that's not being put towards food. That's money that's not being put towards your kids if you have kids. Money that's not being put towards your vacation, your car insurance, which is a scam in itself. And I get why those people want higher taxes. They want higher taxes for social programs. The thing about social programs, though, is they only affect a certain number of people. For example, I voted for high taxes for a new police academy in Colorado Springs. First off, who am I to tell other people to vote for more taxes for a police academy. I voted for it knowing that taxes were going to be increased for a police academy in hopes that it would make Colorado Springs safer. I was willing to pay higher taxes to make Colorado Springs safer. But where I'm in the wrong, and where other people are also in the wrong with other social programs, is I'm telling other people that don't want to pay higher taxes to pay higher taxes. It's like a forced donation. I'm asking other people to force donate into a police academy. I did vote in for what I believed in, and you might call me a hypocrite because there are other people out there who believe in social programs that they believe in it, and I don't. For example, there are a lot of good social programs out there. Cheap, accessible transportation is one of them. Programs to keep our parks clean, programs to make new parks, programs for our infrastructure, such as our roads and our bridges. There are some roads in Colorado Springs I wish had street lights. The problem, though, is, let's be honest, as much as paying higher taxes for all of these social programs is great, they don't get put towards that. Here's a great example. I heard this from one of my buddies who's in the military. The Air National Guard had massive re-enlistment bonuses for some jobs. And they took that money away. Like, as soon as they proposed it, they took it away. And the reason being, the military is having budget cuts. We spend the most, as the United States, we spend the most in our military than any other country in the world. And to hear that we are doing budget cuts, where the heck did our money go? Oh yeah, right, it went to Ukraine and it went to Israel. And for those on the left, they're probably super frustrated that money went to Israel to fight their war, and not to Palestine for aid, which now our money is going towards Palestine for aid. You look at the dock that was made in Gaza. That's our tax money at work, or the amount of billions of dollars that was sent to Ukraine. And the problem with this is, yes, I don't want Russia to be in Ukraine, and I want Ukraine to win, but we're spending so much money that it's affecting infrastructure, it's affecting social programs that a lot of leftists want, but now they're not being funded because it's all going to somewhere else. You got people on the left who want to pay higher taxes, only for that money to end up in Israel, which a lot of people on the left are not pro-Israel, they're pro-Palestine. So now their tax money is going to the wrong people, but they voted for that. So you kind of see my point, is when you make money, that is your money. And there are things that everyone believes in. There are people, hey, we need money to go to gender studies. Hey, we need money to go towards our roads. Hey, we need money to go towards our military. Yes, by all means, there's a lot of programs out there that I'd like to see funded, especially things that make sense, like infrastructure, road, military, police, all that stuff. But then there's going to be someone who's going to be like, well, no, I don't think we should put any money into that, or not as much money. We should put more money into, human rights, or LGBT. And it's like, well, I respectfully disagree, because I don't see how making people feel special about LGBT affects our roads, which we need to get to places. But that's a respectful disagreement. They have their reasons why they believe in what they believe in. I'm just expressing mine right now. But when you make money, that is your money that is taxed. Now, luckily, despite how high taxes are these days, we're still one of the very fortunate countries that actually pays taxes more on the lower end than we do on the upper end. Looking at you, Japan, China, and Canada, who pay well over 40%. We pay somewhere in the low 20%, but low to mid 20% depending on your income. I believe it's 37% if you're making six figures, which is high. I believe in a flat tax, by the way. If someone were to make $1,000 in a year, and I know that's unrealistically low, and someone made $1 million in a year, and there was a flat tax of, for example, 20%, well, yes, the person making $1,000 would only pay, what was it, just a few bucks, and the person making $1 million would be paying taxes, a few thousand, but the ratio is the same. Everyone's losing 20 bucks. I don't believe in sales tax. I don't believe you should be taxed on something that you need. Now, luckily, I've lived in states where food isn't taxable, and there's been times where I've walked away with a bunch of groceries with 0% tax, or zero tax at all, 0 cents. There's been one time I walked away with 10 cents worth of tax. But the thing is there are necessities that people need, like toilet paper, or food, or maybe for women, like their hygiene products. And guess what? That's all taxed, especially if it's packaged. It's really going to be taxed. Or if I'm going to look at Washington, if you want to buy a can of Coca-Cola, there's a sin tax, a sugar tax, and a sales tax. And sales tax in Washington is high. So and I know what I'm gonna say is ridiculous, but it's the concept. $1 worth of soda in Washington suddenly becomes $1.50. Yes, it's only 50 cents, but the concept is you paid 3 taxes for a can of soda that should have been worth $1, now 50 cents. Now imagine if you buy something bigger, way bigger, or a bunch of groceries, and those taxes really start to add up. There's a lot of taxes I don't agree with. Apparently, there's like a death tax or a memorial tax. Apparently, if you die, you're taxed. Or it's called an inheritance tax. Yeah, when someone dies and they want to give all their money to their next of kin, I can't remember. I might have my facts mixed up. It's either you get 80%, but it's taxed 20%, or it's taxed 80%, but you get 20% of it. Yeah, that's one great way of saying sorry for your loss. I believe that you should get all of that person's assets. Now, some people might argue, well, if you had a poor next of kin and the grandparents, for example, was filthy stinking rich, well, that generational wealth is just going to go to the next generation. It's going to keep building and building and building, and I don't have a solution for that. But I'm just looking at the concept of whatever you make, or if someone passes away, you should be entitled to all of that. If there's going to be a federal income tax or state income tax, I have mixed feelings on it, because I still believe in whatever you work and make, you should keep. But at the same time, I understand that there are programs out there, like, again, our roads, first responders, our military, that all need to be funded. But there are also social programs out there that I don't want to fund. And that's the unfortunate thing. So I talked about taxes. I do believe in the environment. I hear a lot about how Vivek, I cannot pronounce his name, Vivek, everyone thinks he's going to be Donald Trump's next prime minister and Donald Trump. So here's where in my opinion, things between the left and right start to turn gray. Is on the right, I see a lot of, we have a bunch of oil, we have a bunch of coal, we have a bunch of natural resources that we can harvest, that we can touch into, make it cheap and affordable for everyone, but at the cost of our environment. Whereas on the left, and unfortunately, the left's concept is great. They are very pro-environment. Hey, let's set up more wind turbines. Let's set up more solar panels. And depending on where you live, sometimes you'll even get a tax break, and it's usually a blue state. More electric vehicles. And then all those concepts are great. Now, here's where the problem is, though, and I did a report on this in college, is wind turbines are made of materials that do not decompose. So when they are broken or go out of service, they are put into the ground and they will not go away. On top of that, they kill a lot of migrating birds. And birds, in my opinion, are part of the environment. They are part of the natural environment. So now they're killing birds. You got dams that are being built, and they give out a lot of power, which lights up our cities, which is great. But now they affect the ecosystem around. They affect fish spawns. They might affect animal movement. And usually when a dam is built, that river, that stream now turns into a lake behind it. And for better or for worse, that's, depending on the dam, depending on the state, it still changes the environment. Solar panels, if I remember, they're made of silicon. That is something that also doesn't decompose when the solar panels go out of service. We had a hailstorm in Colorado about August of 2023. A lot of the solar panels in the city are being replaced, and the old ones are going to be thrown away. Those are not going to go away in landfills. They are not. Electric vehicles. I got a lot of problem with electric vehicles. The amount of lithium you have to dig up from the ground is far more than those already in a gasoline vehicle. So there's the massive problem right there. The amount of energy that a factory needs is more for an electric vehicle than it is for a gasoline vehicle. And if you look at how electric vehicles are charged, you might have a power plant that's coal run. You're still burning coal to charge your vehicle. Or I've seen gasoline or diesel generators charging up electric vehicles. Is just as bad, if not worse, than actually owning a diesel truck or a gasoline vehicle. On top of that, the amount of problems that I've seen with electric vehicles where they don't charge in the cold, they take hours to charge up, and even if they take hours to charge up, they don't charge fully. And another odd thing about electric vehicles is why don't we put solar panels on the roof? Well, because it weighs it down? Okay, but you're still getting free energy from the sun. That's if the sun's available. That's if the wind's blowing for the wind turbines. So, as far as being a pro-environment lefty right now, I believe the concept of the left is great. It's probably one of the very few things I'll actually give the left, is the concept of saving the planet is great. But how we're going about it isn't foolproof. And in some instances, depending on what we're talking about, is even worse. Which is why, as much as I hate to say this, but like this whole green movement, I feel like it's kind of a scam. I feel like there's some kind of sub-agenda going on. The concept's great. A lot of the concepts on the left are great, but when implemented, it doesn't work. A lot of people associate the left with communism. The whole concept of communism is great, but you look at how often it's been tried and how many people have died, how many people have been starved, how many people have been accused of treason, only to find out that they were never guilty. You look at the gulags, look at the modern communist countries right now, and they don't work. Or they're barely working. I don't even know how Cuba's made it this far. And China even had to adopt a hybrid economy. But you also look at how they're doing. Capitalism ain't perfect, but I believe that, companies who, if they come up with a product that people want, that's how they make money. And that's how they get rich. And then they make more product. Look at Amazon. A lot of people wanted products that they wanted to get through Amazon, and that's how Amazon got rich. And ironically, there's a lot of lefties, oh, I hate capitalism, but they turn around, they buy Starbucks, they buy things on Amazon, and like that's how capitalism works. And I honestly believe, looking at history, governments don't make the best decisions on what the people need. And that's usually how communism goes, is, oh, I believe that, let's look at like certain medications. Oh, we should only make a certain amount of medications to go out to the people, and then when it runs out, well, it runs out. Same could be said for like a lot of other products, even food. Food was so bad in the Soviet Union, despite how much they hated the United States, they still had to import food from us. And Gorbachev tried really hard to turn around and grow his own food, specifically corn, if I remember that correctly. But they still had to get food from a capitalist country. But that's also another problem, is, with leftism, which unfortunately I associate with like socialism or communism. Again, the concept's great. Everyone has an equal footing, and no one essentially gets left behind. But like I said, in practice, looking at history, that's never the case. With capitalism, or at least conservatism, it is every person for themselves. Only the fittest will survive. The smartest will survive. You look at like the billionaires today, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates. They're all very smart people. Now, depending on where you get your information from, some people might have stole this information from their colleagues. Let's just go with these were smart people for now. These were smart people that were innovated. They made a company. They made a lot of money, and they are billionaires. They survived. And then you have the middle class who works for these people, and it is the higher ups of these companies, and it could be any company. Like even like look at an insurance company. They're rich, but they still got to pay their employees. These companies have to pay their employees a living wage. And depending on your position, depending on your education, your skills that you bring to the company determines how much money you get paid. And that's kind of how capitalism works. That's how it works. And yes, it sucks for the people that are making minimum wage, but unfortunately raising the minimum wage limit suddenly raises prices of everything. And it's sad. There's, no matter in what society, communism, capitalism, whatever, there's always going to be a group of people that is going to be down in the dirts. This is the unfortunate thing. These people might have mental or physical problems that prevent them from working, and they have no one to take care of them, which is unfortunate. You got drugs coming into our country, and these people take these drugs, and then they end up like the homeless people and they end up perma-fried. They don't contribute to society. You might have someone who is straight out of general school or high school, depending on where you're from and what you call it, who starts working for minimum wage jobs, and that's probably as far as they're going to get. And they cannot move up, whether if it's qualifications or there's just no openings, and they have to continue to live with mommy and daddy, if they even have a mommy and daddy or a guardian that can take care of them. You got the 18-year-old, as soon as they turn 18, they're kicked out of the house, and unfortunately their options are moving in with friends, moving in with other family members, if they have those, joining the military if they're even qualified to join the military, or essentially just working their ass off and hoping that they work a good minimum wage job that allows them to work as many hours as they want, but at the same time still having the money for food, which is going up, and housing, which is also going up. So, kind of bringing it back a little bit, obviously I believe in capitalism. I believe in the environment. We only have one planet, and if we mess up this planet, we have nowhere else to go. And for those of you who want to say, well, if we just terraform Mars and Venus, yeah, first off, how long will that take? How much money will that cost? Because by the time our planet is screwed, Mars and Venus are worse options. I believe in fossil fuels for the time being. That seems to be where our society has relied on for the past century. But there will be a point where those fossil fuels will run out. And let's be honest, they aren't good for our environment. They might be good on Mars. Pollution might be good for some planets if we're going to terraform it. I mean, gosh, I've seen videos if you nuke Venus. Nuke Venus? That's how we terraform Venus? Is you gotta nuke it? Pollution's apparently good for Mars from the resources I've looked up. Very surprising. But it ain't good for our planet. And that's the facts. You know, we can only throw so much stuff into the ground with landfill. We can only burn so much stuff and for it to go into the air. I mean, my God, look at the air quality in China. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. The air quality when I was in Afghanistan was bad too. They burned everything. They burned their human waste. They burned their trash. I'd smell it. It stinks. I don't want that in the air. It's gross. I did believe in communism when I was in high school on the technicality that I just liked military stuff and I associated the Soviet Union with military. I mean, my God, you look at the Soviet Union, you're going to see like a bunch of military parades. And I did consider them, you know, a superpower, but unfortunately they got a lot of their money from just selling arms. And I guess when you are very low down in society, maybe you're not working, or maybe you're either not working or you're working so hard that you're not making enough money. Referring back to those young kids out of high school, for example, that are working their butts off to try to make ends meet, but they're not. That's a very big fly or fall moment for people, especially if they don't have parents or guardians that are willing to take care of them after they turn 18. But those are the kind of people where rather than trying to find different solutions, different jobs, different means of income, or working harder, they determine that it is easier to, let's just bring everyone down to my level, and then everyone's equal. Well, okay, you're bringing down literally everyone above you at your level. Yes, all this money goes to like government, but you look at celebrities, they make a lot of political statements. They don't know what's going on. They're all millionaires, multimillionaires, that they spend their days acting, and they live probably in Beverly Hills or somewhere bougie in California or anywhere bougie. They might even have their own private island. They don't know what the average person's doing or going through. Inflation probably doesn't affect them that much. Whereas it affects people like me, where I was paying $80 for groceries a week 2 years ago. Now I'm paying $120 on groceries a week. 2 years later, 3 years later, I see that kind of stuff. Insurance has gone up. Gas went down a little bit, and now it's going back up again. But I got to budget this kind of stuff. I'm not like one of those multi-million-dollar politicians or celebrities where who cares how much gas costs? I can afford it with my eyes closed. Same with the politicians. You look at how rich politicians are. If politicians made what they were supposed to make, or if they were making the average GDP, they would definitely implement policies that, wow, you know, hey, if I'm being affected this way with the income that I'm making, imagine what other people are thinking or feeling financially. But they don't worry about that because they're all filthy stinking rich. But you got people below who want to pull those people down, give all that money to the government, and the government doesn't know what's best for its people. Because again, they're living the high life, like those celebrities that I just mentioned. They don't know what we need, and if they think they know what we need, it ends up not being the case. Now let's just make, maybe a few hundred dozen medications of this insulin, when really we need a lot more. This is what we're going to make for food this year. This is our quota. And then come to find out it's not even enough to feed half the population for a whole year. And unfortunately, as smart as analytical people, analysis people might be, they can be wrong. They can be wrong. Sometimes numbers and situations might be different than reality. I believe, at least with capitalism, because we the people live down here, the middle class, and politicians unfortunately live way up in the clouds. Companies and the people can determine what to buy, when to buy it, what the price is, what makes prices go up, go down, what's affordable, what's not affordable. If it ain't affordable, we ain't going to buy it, and then they lower their prices. If there's a high demand for it, the prices is going to go up. If a bunch of people buy a bunch of Starbucks and the price goes extremely up, there's going to be a group of people, or a lot of people, I'm not going to buy coffee anymore from Starbucks because it's too expensive. And then you either have extremely wealthy people just buying Starbucks, or Starbucks is going to lower the prices so everyone can buy Starbucks. It's just an example. I'm not an economics expert, but this is just kind of how I see capitalism and how it benefits us, the people, and how communism just really doesn't work. So I've already been talking for 30 minutes. I've been trying to keep these videos out of more or less 30 minutes, but I've talked about why I'm pro-gun, why I'm pro-capitalist, why I'm pro-environment, why I was communist, just because my dad was also struggling, and I just thought it was easier if everyone was on my dad's level, because my poor dad was working very hard. That was a situation where capitalism worked against him. But that wasn't the answer in the long term, because now he's got a job, now he's making good money. But if we continued this communist ideology that I had in high school, then we would probably still be in the same situation we were when he was going through all those situations, where he wasn't employed and not making that much money. But I believe that capitalism put him in a position to where, hey, he eventually got a job with job security, and now he's making good money. I'm going to make a part 2 of this, but thank you so much for watching part 1.